Jonathan, and the work you do on this team summit. I see some names I recognize too in the participants. Thanks for being here. If you've had any calls with me before, you know, usually I'm the one they mute and turn off videos. So it's fun to be on the other side, but excited to showcase some of the work that our team gets to do in Teams engineering, specifically as it relates to app templates and how you can build upon those to go do more business objectives within Teams. So today, like Sarah mentioned, we're going to talk about Company Communicator and Teams Emergency Operations Center specifically. Those are two of our bigger and latest updates, and excited to hear feedback as we go through it. I'm going to take control, Sarah. And just a real quick recap. So again, my name is Josh Leparati. I do work in Teams Engineering. Specifically, our team gets the opportunity to hear a lot of feedback, and feedback specifically around, hey, what else could we do or imagine in Microsoft Teams that could just enhance the experience? And a lot of it goes to showcase areas that you already have access to in Microsoft 365 and kind of stitching those together. So you'll see that we build out these app templates with the hope and right envisioning that you'll take the code and the work that we do and build upon it. We've seen that a lot with one of the ones we'll show, Company Communicator. There's several different instances out there, but that's the goal behind these open source app templates, is really to give you access to something to say, hey, we've pre-built this. We see there's some demand for it and some great business objectives and use cases, but we know that maybe you want to take it farther. So that's why we specifically do release these as open source templates where you can take that and do it. Behind all of these, we do have some mechanisms to help provide you and guide you around how you may customize or how you may support those in your environment. But you can visit that link on the screen to see these templates and some of the other ones that we manage. We like to use the catchphrase of it's from execution to innovation, and to inspire that drive of I can really start to set custom apps and custom business apps and teams to achieve more. I'm going to show two slides just to highlight our two templates we're going to talk about today. Then I'm a demo person, so I'm going to jump into some demos for this. The first one we're going to talk about is Company Communicator. And just to give you a one-pager, right, just this on what Company Communicator is, it's meant to be an extension in Teams where you can go and send targeted communications out to your employees on Teams. I won't call any customers out here, but I know I see some that have used this in their organization here on the call. And it's meant to be where, hey, you can easily send out some very quick, very rich adaptive cards to convey messaging out either to entire large audiences, targeted audiences, or very specific channels and team members. You can take this and build upon it and add other innovative functions into it. And our team continues to also expand the functionality within this app template. The next one we're going to talk about, and super excited to have an avenue to share it with you all here, is our Microsoft Teams Emergency Operations Center. This app template specifically came into its beginnings out of our pandemic response. My manager, Caruana Gatimu, actually led a lot of our COVID response efforts at Microsoft. And as we started to look at our best practices and do some reflection about how we manage those processes, Teams was pivotal and critical, right, to that response effort, but there were some pieces missing, specifically some elements on how could we better manage the ongoing stand-up of incident and response to incidents. You know, Teams is a great collaboration mechanism. That's what it's there for. How can we better kind of have a center of gravity for those response efforts? And that's what we did with the Microsoft Teams Emergency Operations Center. So as I go through that, I'll demonstrate, right, what we envision and how we see that app template being used to respond to incidents and how you can take it further in your organization to do just that. So again, these are going to be two specific demonstrations I'll give specifically around using apps and customizing apps for teams in your environment. So this is the fun, you know, transition slide, and I'm going to move over to a demo and share my screen. So one moment while I set that up. All right. So if I could get some reactions, I should see, or you all should see, a Company Communicator screen up. Everybody seeing that? Fantastic. Okay, so with all of our app templates, depending on which one you're using for both Company Communicator and our Teams Emergency Operations Center, There's components that you would deploy both inside of Teams, and for these two specifically, also in Azure. Some app templates aren't going to require the Azure side infrastructure, but these do as well. They also take use of other infrastructure services like SharePoint or Microsoft List to also store and convey some of this data. So we're really using a wide gamut of Microsoft 365 solutions available to us. With Company Communicator specifically, again, we kind of teed up, right? What does it do? It's meant to be that targeted communication engine where you can go and convey messaging out to a large set of individuals. Now, it does make a difference between, hey, why would I not just like send an all company message in Teams or just start a really, really big group chat, right? I mean, why not? Um, Within Company Communicator, we give you a few elements to start changing the message type and having it kind of from a controlled dashboard. So, right, some of the areas that you could envision using this from, maybe you have a marketing and comms department, maybe your IT department where you want to send targeted comms or targeted updates out to individuals and kind of have this central dashboard to go and manage the communication out, see the successful send rate or failure send rate, and be able to duplicate and resend those types of messages. So you can see right now I'm homed in on the Company Communicator Author application inside of a team. So here's the way this would work. I could install Company Communicator as the author app, either inside of a team where I want to deliver targeted messages, or I could use this as my launching point to distribute to the entire company. So some scenarios could be maybe you've got a marketing team or an event page like the team summit, and you had all the members that were part of that team in that team. You could go and send targeted communications out and stylize those messages and send them through Company Communicator. You could also do this to all employees. So let's look at a few examples. So I'm in my author screen here. You can see I've got some sent messages. I have no drafts. The first thing that I would do is I would click new message to start composing a new message. There's, like I mentioned before, there are some forks of this application. So, we talk about this being an open source application. This is housed on GitHub. We do manage the main repo, and you'll see us continue to invest and update that main repository where this lives. So we just recently had an update, I believe it was in June or July, that added a few features specifically for this screen here. Those new features are, instead of being able just to point to a image location or a URL to bring that image in, you can now actually upload the image. So you can just upload it and not have to find the URL or host it somewhere. We also support markdown language so that I can mark down the language bold, italics, other formatting I may want to do as I compose this message, and I'll show that here in a moment. We are also working on an update that's coming out actually next week, and we'll post a blog article to share that updates really some of the behind the scenes components. The .NET core components will update to .6 or 6.x so that those are continue to be supported. But you'll see that continued update in our main repo for this. So let's walk through completing a message now. So for this message, I'm going to use Office is open. So scenario here, maybe I'm targeting out to a group of users, hey, the office is open, let's come back into it, or a location is open. So I've put in my title message. For image URL, I can either put the URL directly to it, or because I don't know the URL and I got an image I want to use, I'll hit upload. I'll pick my open logo, and so you can see it put the logo in for me. I'll type a summary. I'm going to do two summary types. So this one is just plain text. Office is open. Come back in. You can see it, put it down below. The author here, I could either put my name, I could put a department. For this, I'm going to say the HR department. And then I can also have a button call out. So just, hey, click here to find out more. I'm going to say find out more. And my URL could go to HTTPS, everybody's default search engine, Bing. So here's what my message looks like. I'll see the format on the right-hand side. I've got my title, my image loaded in, Office is open, but hey, I want to do a little bit more to this. So I talked about the markdown support, right? I could come in and add in my markdown support. You'll see that that just got bolded there. Maybe I want to say that come back in, let's italics that. So I can easily support that markdown in front or in the compose message now. I've got it looking how I want it to look. I'll hit next. And here's where I can start selecting who I'm going to target this message out to. So I talked about, right, I could target the team. I've only got this installed in one team. But if I had multiple teams that I have access to as the author, those teams would show up here for me to select. I could send this out to all members of the following team. Again, everybody in chat. And then I could also send this out to a specific distribution group or security group. What I'm going to do there when I select that, if I did select that, I'll go ahead and show it. I'm just going to pull those users in, right? So all company, if I selected that, would pull in my all company or any other DGs, distribution groups or security groups you have. For this example, I'm going to send it to everyone. And again, this goes on if I have permissions to do this. If I can't send to everyone, or you set up the app to not allow that, you can make those choices on deployment as well. So in this case, I'm sending to everyone. I'm going to save this as a draft. And that message is now pending for me. I'm going to go ahead and make one more message just to have a couple of messages in draft. And I'll do this one a lot quicker. Office is closed. I'll pick my image for closed. Enjoy the day. This is also from HR, and I'm not going to have a button in this one, right? It's just going to be a simple message that goes out. Same thing, I'll send it to everyone and save this as a draft. So you can see I've started to queue up some messages here. They're waiting for me to go back and either review or send them. I could also come into any sent messages and look at those and duplicate those. So right, if I had one from a previous event that I wanted to reuse, I could go and duplicate one. I'm not going to do that now, but I have the option to do that. You also see I've got some statuses for received or not received. So all of the messages were successfully sent out. It's not showing me my red status yet. That's actually something in our backlog. But it is showing me that, hey, the message was delivered to that person. If for some reason the message couldn't be delivered, I would get a notification here and I could go attempt to resend.
Hey, Josh, we have a couple of questions in the window. Maybe we can just pause for a moment.
Sure.
Here's a question from Brenda, is that she is not seeing, sorry, the chat moved. I don't have the upload button for images and markdown text isn't working. Do I need to actively get an update? What suggestion would you have listed for Brenda?
Yeah, so yes on that. There is an update. It's version 5.3. Hold on, let me make sure. I don't have the logo here, but if you go out to that link that was on the prior PowerPoint, and I can take a moment in a bit and share it directly in text or in the chat. On the GitHub repo for Company Communicator is the upgrade instructions to get to this version, which would include the upload and the markdown support.
Great, thanks. And will targeting users via dynamic mailing lists work as well?
Yes. It would only take it in at that point in time, though.
And then there is a question from Michelle on the company communicator. Can you schedule a date and time to have the message sent?
So in this version, you cannot. I talked earlier about there are multiple iterations of Company Communicator, and one of the reasons that we again release this for open source is so that if others want to improve upon it or add their own functionality, they can. I say that because there are some other versions of this out that do support scheduled send. Our official version does not have it yet, but we do plan to include that in a future update.
Great. And one last question is, when the message is sent in chat, does the author always appear as company communicator, or is someone able to brand the message sender?
So you could modify that if you wanted to brand it as something other than company communicator, but by default, it will come from company communicator.
Okay, I think we're good for now. Thanks so much.
Yeah, sweet, awesome. Great questions. So you can see I've got these two messages that are pending for draft. I'm going to go ahead and look at this Office is Open one. A few things that I would do through this process. The first thing is I'll probably, I don't know, maybe some of you that know me know I wouldn't do this. Maybe I should preview this before I send it just to make sure. I might just hit send, but we're going to go ahead and preview first. So you see I have the option to preview and channel. So usually I would deploy this and have it maybe in a private channel or have the access there so that when I do this testing, I can validate the expected results that I'm going to have sent. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to preview this in the channel. So in a moment, you're going to see this turn black. So I have a new message. I'll go look at it. And there we go. That's what my message will look like. Um, my mouse will update here in a moment. I've got my Office is open. You can see I'm actually having some formatting. There we go. So great. Office is open. Image looks good. It got my Markdown support. Does my link work? I can check that out. Great. Everything works. Um, so I would feel confident sending that. So let's go ahead and send that. So I did Office is open. I'm going to come back to it and tell it to send. I could also, of course, go and edit this or delete it since it is a draft right now. And you'll see what I was talking about in a moment about who it comes from if you haven't seen this before. I'll get one more preview. I'll go ahead and hit send. In a moment, you will see I'll get a pop-up saying I've got a new message. Great, Company Communicator has sent me a message. So if I tap on that, I'll see my Office is open message just like I previewed before. So this does come from the bot Company Communicator. And then same thing that I would go back and do here. You can see I've got one draft. And before I go to this one, you can see this is, again, just a demo tenant, so I don't have a lot of users, but I had 14 that were successfully sent. I've got 14 users. Great, that worked out well. But if I wanted to take any other action on draft messages, I could. I'll show you the edit screen. Looks just like the first creation screen. But I could come back in here and, oh, great, I forgot to mark down this one. I could come back and add that in. And we support, the full range, so I could go and I've got to do this often, go and do a Bing search on what the markdown notifications are. But, I bolded and crossed that out. Just let's confuse everyone. I still want to send this to everyone, save it as a draft, and then I'll just go right back out and send this one without preview note this time. And I'll get one more message queued up, sent out, and then in a moment that would update, hopefully to say another 14 were successfully sent. So you can see, you can start to take Company Communicator and start to, look at ways that maybe how you could enhance marketing and comms going out. Maybe you've got an IT update that you need to push. I know a lot of groups that do use this for IT awareness and promoting, either, hey, we're making these changes over the weekend, or you need to make sure that you've done this on your devices. Really making sure you can have those targeted comms going out. For fun, let's see if it actually did send. Yeah, there we go. So all 14 got sent. So that's a very quick peek into Company Communicator. We actually see a lot of use cases with Company Communicator, and the next one I'm about to demo, the Teams Emergency Operations Center. And in the longer term future, you'll probably start to see some merging of some functionalities here. But the next one that I want to talk about, and Sarah, please feel free to stop me if there's any, or actually I'll pause for a moment. Were there any other questions in the chat for Company Communicator?
Yeah, there was one question, but we did respond. But just to make everyone aware, can you have multiple bots from from IT, one from Corp, and etc.?
Absolutely. Yeah, you could install this as multiple instances. So like if you, wanted one to be marketed from one group, one from the other, you could do that. On the GitHub repo, there is a deployment documentation. And in one of those pages, we actually talk about if you have multiple instances, what you would want to do for that.
And then one last question, can you retract a message?
So you cannot from Company Communicator. Once it's started to send out. Now, if it's still in the process of sending, you can cancel, but once I've sent it, it's out.
Perfect. I think we've answered all the questions so far.
Awesome. Sweet. So let me set the stage real quick for the Teams Emergency Operations Center. And to save Sarah and Jonathan from hearing me say Teams Emergency Operations Center more than they've heard it ever in their life, and for all of you, I'm just going to call it TEOC moving forward because it saves about 30 minutes of our entire lives. But TEOC is here again to specifically serve a function of I need to do incident response, or I want to have a centralized response point to go and respond to incidents. Now, We really developed this in the frame of mind of true incident response. True incident response meaning maybe emergency response, or in a emergency or situation that requires multiple agencies to respond to any given occurrence. We've had feedback and had some other groups also use this for other incident response types. And you'll see that we leave this pretty flexible for you to go and make modifications and manage how you would be able to deploy this out. So you can see I'm home here in the team, just like I was for Company Communicator. This one is specifically, a thought being my emergency operation team. So I've got a team operating here. Inside of this team, we probably have our SMEs for different response agencies, as well as the core team that would be running and responding and providing assets available to others during an incident response. So within that, I've got a app pin called EOC. I could also run this as a left rail app for opening TEOC. But from here, a few things that you can see very quickly, right? I've got a dashboard of all of my incidents. I've got some filter panels where I can go and look at just active incidents or planned incidents so I can quickly see what's happening, what I'm responding to, and what their status is. I've got a search where I can quickly crawl through any of this information and narrow it down. And then I get into some of my management options, and I'll dive deeper into those after we make our first incident. But just to show you what you can do at moment, when I start talking about it, you'll see different incidents I can choose from and different roles that I can choose from. You can manage all of those. So, right, you can make them specific to your organization, make sure that they're fitting what you need to respond to, and remove the other ones so that you're not seeing too much in those drop downs. And then also team name. A few notes here, right? If you can see some teams on the left-hand side, you kind of see I've got a naming standard there. We realize this isn't going to fit everyone, and you probably want to change this. You could change this in the UI here as well. Our biggest driver for both this app template and all of our other ones is feedback. So throughout all of these experiences in our navigation, you'll see this little feedback button. Truly, we drive and improve these based on your all's feedback around these solutions. We understand that not everyone's going to want to go and change the code for some of these. So we try to make sure that we appeal to as much as we can to give you the best functionality out of these app templates, but also give you that potential to go modify and change some of the easier portions of it to fit your org. One of the feedbacks that we got was the team name. Hey, we just want to have our own standard for it, or we want our complete own versioning there of what we want to name it. So you could do all of that as well. So I'm going to go into the main part now and create a new incident. So here's a scenario. I'm in Louisiana. We have a hurricane inbound, and I need to stand up an incident response, whether I'm responding at my local healthcare facility or a government municipality group that needs to do an active response. I've got that information into me, and now I need to create the team that's going to go and respond. TEOC is meant to be that item that stitches all the components together so that on completion of this, you then have a handoff team to your response group and they go use the tools that they're already familiar with using, right? They already know how to use Teams. We're going to add some other elements into it just to make it a bit more functional and show off some of the more modern collaboration elements that are within Teams. But for the response folks, they don't have to learn anything new, right? We're encouraging and enabling the deeper use of teams to do these response efforts. For the EOC individuals, those like us that are going to go create the incidents for response and do some of these items, that's where I would come in here for this incident form detail and start this process. But I like to make that distinction, right? Just so you know, we're creating and enabling the team for the response side from TEOC itself. So I'll walk through this form and talk about what's happening as I build it out. The first thing you'll see is incident name. So I'm going to make my incident name based on today's date, 12/08/22, incident alpha. I talked about being in Louisiana. I'm going to use a hurricane example. A few things you'll see when I hit incident type. So I've got a drop down for all the different incidents I can choose from. I'm going to go up here and choose hurricane. And you see nothing else change on my screen. I'm going to talk about why that's important here in a moment. Start time and date. I could do any time in the past, present, or future. I'm going to pick right now. My incident status from this screen, I could do active or planning. I'll keep it as an active incident. Incident commander, this is where I would choose that point person who is, the commander of this incident, the person that's overall responsible for it. We do a few things with this. The first thing is the incident commander, when we go and create the team, would also be the team owner. So that's one individual that'll get assigned to the team owner. You'll see another role in a moment that also could be applied as a team owner. Everyone else I assign a role to would actually be a team member added into that team. So I've got my commander assigned. Location, I'm just going to do Louisiana. And description, this would be something that I could then do reporting on later or do lookup on later, but just know that, right, description, I'm probably going to give a little bit more than test description, but, what's this incident about? Where is it? What other metadata do I need to capture for this? I've then got a severity scale so I can further sort these. For right now, I'm going to set this to critical. And now I would get into my role assignment. So a few things that we do with role assignment. The first thing is we're matching roles. Again, you could build out this list to be specific for your organization, but I'm building out roles that would then equate to whoever I would assign out to this incident that is in that role. So you see, I've got some kind of default ones we'll provide. I've made some SME specific ones. But let's fill out a few real quick. So the first thing I talked about was a secondary incident commander is also a team owner. So I need to add one more. When I selected that, you saw nobody popped up. When I click in here, if I search, I'm going to search through my Azure Active Directory. So you can see I've got some people that also popped up by default. I'm just going to pick Alan, and in a moment, I'm going to assign him. But you see, I've got a checkbox here too, save default users for this role. Some, again, of the user feedback we got was, hey, this speeds up our time to incident response, but a lot of times we assign the same individuals over and over, depending on what role they're in. So I could save Alan to be a default person assigned every time I pick a secondary incident commander. So then I wouldn't have to search for him every time. I could just select that box and he would default in. An example of that would be if I were to go up here and pick my fire SMEs, right? Patty and Isaiah were already assigned. Great, I can just add them right into it. And then I could continue to build out this role list. I'm going to change this incident type though away from hurricane, and I'm going to go pick a fire response. And you can kind of see I've also got the same ability to set and save these roles for the incident type. So I could quickly, this is a fire. I see that my fire roles were assigned in. Maybe I need to make a modification on the fly, right? Chief admin officer is Joni, but I need one other person there too. I'll do Len. I could quickly do that. For this time, if I were to create the incident, it wouldn't save that as default, but if I wanted to going forward, I could check that and update it again so that next time it would save that going forward. So I'm going to keep this as a fire incident. I'm going to keep all the other items selected, and I'm going to go ahead and click create new incident. Now, there's one other thing that we're doing. Well, there's a few things we're doing, but one other critical thing for these role assignments that we're doing. I talked earlier about showing off and hopefully, highlighting some of the other modern collaboration things you can do. So you see, I got role group, and it's called Fire SME and Logistics Coordinator, and I named those specifically because for me, that matters to my organization. We're also going to go ahead and create tag groups inside of the team that we're about to create and assign those individuals to those tag groups. So my next change is I can say, hey, when you're assigned into an incident and you have your fire SMEs there, you don't have to know who the fire SMEs are. You can just mention fire SME and then call out what you need to do. Or you can go to an assessment, fill out the assessment and tag it to the at fire SMEs that it needs their attention. So we're trying to highlight functionality that's already capable in Teams, but bring that more into the forefront and make it a lot easier for that very quick enablement and deployment of this resource. So you can see while I was talking, I had a team built out, Team 80. It had my standard naming convention. You see some standard channels being created. I'm adding these users into that team, and I'm adding a few extra assets that I'll talk about in a moment into that team as well. Now, for me, from the TEOC side and from the EOC, I've received the intake of this fire incident, and I needed to create a response team. I've now done that work. I've gone into my dashboard. You see it's marked as an active issue. It's been deployed out. I could quickly get into it by going here or by looking on my list if I was assigned to it. And the next work would then happen from the response individuals. So I'll take a moment and pause just in case I don't have the
Yeah.
chat open, Sarah, if there's
Yeah,
any questions.
there's there's definitely a lot of questions, so let's maybe take a minute. So, a lot of questions around integration. An example would be like ServiceNow. Can you maybe pause and talk about that?
Yeah. So out of the box, we don't have any built-in integrations. This is meant to be, if you need it to be, you know, completely siloed in your environment and ran. And that's another topic to talk about too, right? When you bring this into your environment, you're not connecting to any of our services, meaning there's no specific TEOC service to connect to. This is all run within your own Azure infrastructure and your own team's environment. Now, we made a few specific design decisions so that if you had some integration points you wanted to easily enable, you could do that. And what I mean by that is when I go look at managing any of these lists, it's a Microsoft list, right? I'm not going anywhere else for this. It is a Microsoft list. So to the point that I could integrate this list or bring data into the list, into this list from other components, I could set those integrations and set that automation to do. And of course, you could always integrate through the code and through custom development on it because we do release it open source. But if I wanted to make any custom integrations, I would need to do that. Some examples just to highlight where I've had some customers do that, specifically around those default role assignments. So we make a list for the default role assignments and the incident type default role assignments. If I already had group names and users that I wanted to pre-build out and bring that in, right, I could pre-complete this list so that it's already available to me out there and ready to use. I don't have to, I could use the UI to build it, but if I had another system of record to bring that in, I could. The other point of integration that we've heard is this incident transaction list, right? This is where I'm writing my incidents to. If you wanted to write here and then kick our APIs off to go create the team and use the TEOC engine that, I mean, behind the scenes, we're doing API calls to do our creation, to drop assets in and create the team and the channels. You could, that would just be some custom development you would need to do there.
Great. There's also a question, will the coordinators get some type of notification stating that they were added?
Yeah, so once you have done that incident creation, so right, I've gone to this part, I filled out this form and I click create new incident. When I talked earlier about we want the response individuals to be using what they're already comfortable using, they'll get a Teams notification just like they would for any other team addition or modification saying, let's use me as an example. Josh, you were added to incident 80. Your role was incident commander, and you've been added to this team. Everyone else will get those same notifications based on their notification preferences.
Great. And this is a question from Michelle, and I answered yes, but maybe you can maybe elaborate and correct me, no problem. But underneath incident type, have you seen many companies use it for managing 911 calls?
Yeah, the answer is no, just to contradict Sarah. No, I'm kidding.
No, I said it. That's fine. Go ahead.
For anybody that can't tell,
Is
I
it
like
different? Yeah.
to mess with Sarah a good bit. Um, here's where we see, because we've had some conversations with 911 operation centers. If it's a major incident, yes. But if it's an ongoing, or not an ongoing call, but a reoccurring call type where it's a pretty standard response effort, not as much, because on my deployment, you can see I'm deploying a team for every incident response type. Where we've had and where I know that some have done this is, let's say 911 is the intake center and it's actually a power distribution center that's caught on fire, or some larger event type that will require responses from multi groups. Maybe they would then escalate into TEOC or go create the issue request that something needs to be made. But for those smaller type 911 calls, traffic accident, something in a neighborhood or whatever it may be, not as much because of the creation of the team behind the scenes. You may not need a team for all of that.
Perfect. Thanks for confirming my answer. And then also coming in from Matt was, did you say we could write directly to the main list via our own code and it would create the team? Question mark.
So
Also, do we, sorry, just to kind of add, also, we have to do is fill out the list, question mark.
yeah, the operation of just putting into the list would not create the team, but you could invoke our code from this screen on create new incident to basically pipe into this process to then drop your data into that process, which would put it in that list and do the creation of the team. We're doing two events here, right? The first event is we are storing this data in the list. Secondly, we are going and taking the stored data to create the team. We're taking some of these assets like incident name, not status, but type, and a few other elements to build out the naming convention. If you had your own convention where you didn't take any of that metadata, right, you could still customize all that and change it too on the fly.
Perfect. I think we're good for questions right now.
Okay. A few other integration points that I will talk about, and then I'll show the response side, because the response side is, again, pretty straightforward because it is meant to be as easy as possible for response individuals. It's in the team. But I showed, right, we have several lists behind the scenes that are running this. And we made that decision specifically so that you could manipulate and work with these lists either to bring in your own data or to do other automation actions on top of it. Some of the more popular ones too that we get asked, one is around some reporting mechanisms. So, since we're in a list here, we could easily take, depending on licensing, and we didn't make this a requirement because there is no licensing requirement other than Teams and your standard Microsoft 365 license to run TEOC. You need some Azure infrastructure, but you don't need a TEOC license. It runs off the licensing you have. So we didn't build any reporting directly in yet because we didn't want to assume Power BI licensing. But, right, I could go into here, and again, this is my main transaction list, and I could go and do anything that I normally could do with a list. Again, this isn't TEOC specific. This is because we're building on top of other Microsoft 365 solutions. But if I go up here to integrate and I were to choose Power BI, because I'm in a demo tenant, I'm going to need to log in. So let me log in real quick. But let's say that I was in a normal tenant, I was already logged in. I could have gone to this list. I could have visualized the list. And again, I'm probably going to go modify and change around some of Power BI's very, very good guessing about what I want to see into an actual report that I can consume. So a lot of asking around, hey, how can I provide situational awareness out to other members that maybe wouldn't need to be in TEOC or wouldn't need to be in the response teams, but need an overall status of, hey, what's happening, what's going on? I can easily take that list and start to build on top of it, right? I could easily say, well, you know what? I need to not only see that, but I want to see and filter based on my incident type. I can quickly start to filter and build that and get some pretty good data visualization analytics out of that. Again, it's just a list. I could go change this if I wanted. I could bring my own data into it too. But that is one part. The other part too that I kind of briefly touched on, right, is when you think about the types of incidents that are out there and roles, we fully expect that you'll come in here and make this your own. So you can see it's just a flat list of names of incident types. So I would come take these out, add my new ones in, and that would pick up over in the TX solution. So I could go and minimize that list of what I needed to go respond to quickly. So from the response side, again, let's go with the scenario of Josh has been assigned here. If it wasn't me doing this, I would have gotten an activity alert saying, hey, you're added to a team. And this is the team, right? And then from here, some things would start to happen, right? Maybe my incident commander goes in, makes a welcome post for us to describe the actions, the next steps. But we did add two other assets into here just to showcase what you could start doing next. You may, and we do see others take this as the next level of customization, want to deploy your own assets into here as well. So one example of something we add in is if I go into assessments, I've got the notion of ground assessment. So here the thought is, let's provide a list. It could be a form. It could be, any input mechanism you already have, but I need to facilitate my ground response agents the ability to come in here very quickly using Teams in a mobile friendly way, maybe in a tablet way anyway, to come in and grab me some ground assessments. So this is just a list that we pre-build and deploy out. You could change what we deploy out into fit your own needs, but right, I got some basic info I can grab. Power line down. I could enter in the local contact info. Again, this is standard Microsoft 365, but I do like to highlight like location of assessment that we build here. You can pull geolocation. So if you wanted to, you could see and add in the local address, lat and longitude, so you could go and plot that later in your own mapping tools if you have those. If you've used any other emergency operations center components, things like Esri or ArcGIS, you could bring that into channel experiences. So you could bring those maps you already have into it. You could plot on top of Power BI mapping. Lots of avenues there. We kind of talk about some other elements here. I'm going to pick, of course, LSU won't come up for me. Well, you can see, there we go. So I've got some addresses that pull up. None of these are local to me, but if I was a better typer, they might. I'm going to pick a random location. Then I could also attach images on the fly, do some other elements. I'm not for now, but I could very quickly save that, have that in my list, and continue that build out of any types of ground assessments I wanted to complete. The other thing that we add in here, and I'm going to jump into another team where I think I've done this a few days ago, is around situational awareness and situational updates that you need to provide out. Just to call attention to, you've probably already got a lot of this in different places inside of Microsoft 365. And again, we're trying to help you bring those together in the solution so that you can easily respond to issues or incidents. But the fact that you could use SharePoint News as one of those avenues to communicate situational updates. So in this example, I can't find the team where I've done some news articles, but let's just do one real quick. So I'll go out to my SharePoint News site. I'm going to make a new news post real quick. And here's the avenue of where I would want to do this, right? Maybe I need to make an update, right? This is my weekly update for whatever's going on with this incident. I would have my title, name. That's all I'm going to add. I've got some great data points here. I'm going to post this news article, and that's pretty common, easy. But what I can do next is where we kind of take it to the next level, is I could share this now with folks that are outside of that incident. So this is where, if I've got administration, if I've got other interested parties that need to have those awareness or those bulletins sent to them, I could do that from here and promote or send to this news article so I could share it with them, or I could go back into my team and make sure that my team gets awareness and updates on those. So if I hadn't been here, I would have had a new notification that I've got a weekly update. You can see I format it pretty quickly there, but then I could click in and read more about this news article. Again, those are two things that are already present in Microsoft 365 solutions. We just want to help stitch those together so that you have quicker response times and better ways to respond to those incidents through hopefully a framework that you can build upon and make it your own. So I will pause one more time. Sarah, any other follow-up questions on anything I've shown since then?
No, we're good for so far. Unless anyone has any questions, feel free to post.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I mean, if anybody has any other questions, please do feel free to post them in there. This was the Teams Emergency Operations Center. Two more things I'll highlight and then switch back to make sure there's no other questions. We talked about some other elements you could do post creation of the event. Two other things I can do. The first thing I can do is I can come and edit any of these incidents. So if I edit it from here, I will also go and update the team. Where that's important is if I came and modified any role assignments. So in this example, I'm going to change this old issue or this old incident I had down to high. I'm going to remove my logistics coordinator, and I also would need a reason for update. I'm going to put update. So I'll go update this incident. So what I'm doing now is for incident 78, I will go remove that user actually. I'll go and remove the tag group. I can do that because I'm the commander or I'm a secondary incident commander. If I was another role, I would not be able to edit that. But then post that change, I could also come and look at my incident history. So this is taken off of feedback as well that, hey, we need a way to see the changes that have happened. You can see in this one, I've got two events that have happened. On December 7th, I created the event. You can kind of see all the new data because it was the first creation event. And then today, 1 minute ago, you can see old versus new data for any of the changes I've made. I could also go look in a table view to quickly scan and see those. If I just wanted to, like, if I had a lot of updates and I wanted to quickly scan and see what was changed, I could do it there as well. So yeah, that's the team's emergency operations center that I said I wouldn't call that long name, but that's it. That's TEOC. Any other questions that came in or anything else I can share about those?
Yep, we've got another question from Mark. We focus a lot on task completion during incidents. Is there a way to add a planner to the situation? And if so, will it automatically add those who are assigned to the task to the channel?
So I love that question. Absolutely. The reason I love that is I'll go ahead and share because it's not under, well, it's not under NDA. We actually publish this in a few places. This is an open source solution, so right, we value and drive. I've said it a lot. I'll continue to say it on feedback. One of the feedback items we got was specifically related to that, right? Hey, we drive a lot of these issues or incidents on task completion. The next update that we'll provide out. So I guess let me answer it in two parts. The first part is, could you add the planner board in and add folks in based on whoever you would add and assign and then bring them into the channel? Absolutely. Right. I could go into any of these deployed incidents, just like I could with any other team. I could go add my planner, task by planner into do in there, build that out, create it as new, and add folks into it. Now, the feedback we got is, I mean, that's great, but I don't want to have to do that every time because a lot of groups do that same thing. So what's exciting about that question? Sorry, I got super excited there. Is we are building this notion of an active dashboard or active bridge in the next release coming. And what that means is when you create an incident, we're going to add a third icon here that's that active dashboard. And there's a few main things we do with the active dashboard. The primary thing is it's now the bridge between that response group that's operating in the team and your TEOC, your emergency operations center folks, as a common kind of standard place to go and see the situational picture of what's happening right now. And in that dashboard, one of the components is we're going to go ahead and pre-build a task board, a planner board, so that you can quickly assign out and keep track of those tasks related to the incident. So that'll be one component. That's a big component we're doing. Actually, the planner team just released the APIs to be able to do that. So we're going to pick up and build that into it. A few of the other components, since I've already talked about it now, one component is we'll have a role guide on that screen as well. So you'll see all the roles, the assigned individuals to those roles, and you could also designate a lead. So if you wanted to call out and say, hey, nobody would ever call me a lead, but Josh is the lead for this role group, I could see that and I could get a visual indication of that. I talked about some of the integration too around company communicator and TEOC. We're going to add in a pane where you can quickly send an adaptive card message to quickly give updates out to the team members who were assigned to the incident. Maybe, hey, I need to let you all know this, set the importance. That'll be a component on there. And then the final component that'll be on there is the ability to quickly open and close a bridge. So the scenario there is, hey, I need to pull everybody into a meeting. Let me flip on my incident bridge. It'll create the meeting in the background. We'll invite everybody to it. And then I can close it from that screen as well. Or I could send out a push notification from that screen to say, hey, everybody, I need you to be on this bridge. I've opened it up. Here you go. And then, right, we bring in that task planner board so that you could easily assign task out during that meeting, but everything stays on that active dashboard. We're super excited about that feature because it starts to bridge some of the more process side items together. So great question.
Perfect. Yep. You just answered Scott's question, and just a little bit of feedback from Mark was, yeah, pre-built task and planner assigned to the roles would be amazing. And then here's another question that just came in, more of a general question. How does these Teams app templates differ from the apps like the Microsoft Milestones Teams app? Are they created by different groups at Microsoft?
Yeah, there's different groups that make all of these. Maybe not all of them, but a big subset of them. Our apps differ because they are open source. So these specifically, these meaning there's 7 of these that our team supports. Company Communicator and Teams Emergency Operations Center are two of those. The support model is also a little bit different, and that's something to keep in mind with these, right? Because you can take this and customize it and make it your own. But for these, for the main repo that we release, the main version, we have a team of developers that also go and respond and watch the GitHub issues list. So if you ever need support, if you ever encounter an issue with it or something's not working right, that GitHub issues list, which is accessible through all of our applications on the support icon, would take you out to where we would have an active issue log going on. So when I visit this, right, you'll see that I'm taken to the issues list for Teams Emergency Operations Center, and we actually have one issue that's been created. Our developers will go out there and respond and resolve that issue. So, right, these are open source. There is action that you would need to take other than searching the App Store and finding it and adding it in. You actually need to build out some of the Azure side infrastructure and then add the app in Teams so that it's accessible and able to be used by others.
Great questions. I think feel free to keep asking away on the questions. And with that, I'll kind of go back to the PowerPoint and kind of close this out if there's no more.
Awesome.
So moving on, so Jonathan and I really, the Jonathans, I should say, really do appreciate everyone joining today's session and sticking with us for this week. We've had a lot of great topics, and we have one more remaining tomorrow focused on hybrid work. But just to kind of close everything out, we really do appreciate if you could give us feedback. So we have posted the survey in the chat window, and also the code is listed on the screen. Please give us feedback on how you thought today's session was, but also what other sessions would you love to see? We're planning on doing this again in the springtime. So hopefully, based off of feedback, we'll definitely pick something that's of interest to the group. The last thing also is this session is open to all, but a group of us are part of the health and life science group. So we have created a Yammer community where we post information about upcoming events that we sponsor, but also it's a great way to collaborate with other healthcare clients. So if you are interested in joining that Yammer community, feel free to click on the link, or definitely take out your phone and scan the code that's on the screen. We will have today's session, the video and the PowerPoint up in a couple of hours, so just give us a little bit of time. We will send a note out to all participants giving the link, but it's out on the Health and Life Science blog, which I did post at the beginning of the session. So if you just rather keep that as a favorite, feel free to. And with that, I don't think there's any other questions in the window. Am I missing anything, Jonathan?
I don't think so, but this was excellent. Thanks, Josh, for doing this. I know this was really well received. If you've got questions about anything you saw today, please let us know. Reach out. We're here to help support you and make sure that you're successful. So yeah, just let us know
Awesome.
how we can help you. Yeah, any questions? I love that interoperability between ServiceNow and Company Communicator and TEOC. I mean, these are great solutions that we're now stitching together to really help you communicate broadly and manage incidences. So
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great session. Well, thanks to all. We'll give everyone back a couple of minutes, and hopefully we see you on tomorrow's session on hybrid work.
see you tomorrow, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.